Do titles matter in Irish paganism? Well, Dagda agus Fáilte. Hi, hello, and welcome. Jon O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School. And this is a Cashter question we get in a number of different ways from people um, querying what a particular title means or where those particular words from. How do I earn this particular title or rank or I the other side of the narrative is I've come across people who say that they're this and I've had difficulties with them. So how do I then trust in paganism or spiritual practice or belief or gods or guidance when they've had negative experiences where people who purport themselves to be or who claim the title in various circumstances that have caused them harm? Now, I suppose first thing, what do I mean by titles? It really comes down to things like priest, priestess, high priest, high priestess, druid, witch, bard, chieftain, any of these kind of words or titles that we come across time and again in a variety of different practices and spiritual beliefs, which fall under the realm of paganism. Now, I'm going to steer dominantly to Irish paganism because that is my wheelhouse. But I'm sure you may come across people who like to present their title to you as part of who and what they are, but when you look at what they do, they might not be living up to the ideals of what it doesn't actually do what it says on the tin, as that old cliche advert goes. Um, I will say that this is kind of my personal opinion, and I'm not naysaying anyone else's practices. I'm not kind of punching down at all. Like that's not my intent in any way, shape, or form. But I have been told many, many stories, many personal stories by a lot of individuals who've had really negative experiences, or have seen or been on the receiving end of abusive behaviors, all under the auspices of some self-proclaimed title or relationship that this individual has positioned themselves in. I've seen so many cults of ego passing themselves off as spiritual practice, even in my own experiences, that this is why this question is worth talking about in those ways. Um, so really for me, what it comes down to, like a title is just a word. It is literally just a word, and a word is something that in these instances is just a descriptor. And it's not a symbol of authority. It's not like a special achievement unlocked thing you put after your name so everyone knows you're like I refer to myself as a bard. Now, I refer to myself as a bard. I have not been named a bard by any druidic body or function. I've not done any formal training or process with any of those, but I honor the ancient traditions of Irish bards from my own studies and the practices. So I don't use bard as some form of title. I use it as a descriptor. It means that when you come to me with questions, I'm going to answer you as a bard. I'm going to answer you as someone who has recollection of stories, someone who has information and insight based on my studies of the stories, and someone who can give you that information or that insight, but also entertain you along the way. So hopefully the message of the story is carried forward. So also another function of the bard is to witness and to remember and to record, which is why again I have many stories of people coming to me for their stories, or again witness myself, where people don't live up to their titles or their what they are describing themselves to be when they use the title. Now, there are certain things that are not in my area of expertise, which I'm going to take a slight touch on because I want to acknowledge that. My partner Laura, for example, is a high priestess. High priest, actually, they prefer to to use the term priest as opposed to priestess. They've done their third degree Wiccan training, um, and for even for them, they don't generally use that title anymore, but they're a direct descendant in their practice and they have all of their hierarchy to show it. But really, what it comes down to is when someone says high priest or high priestess, what they should be, what that really means is they've done the fucking training. They've been trained, not just, oh, they're interested in it, or not just, they had a dream or some mystical appointment by a god or goddess or whatever. Like my understanding specifically in the branch of Wicked that they're in. I don't know which branch of Wicked it is off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it is, but I don't want to get it wrong, so I'm not going to put it in video. But in the practice that they were trained in, they did the training, and when they used that term, or when in the past they have used that term, it was to denote the fact that they have levels of skill and practical training, and that's what it actually means. It's not that they're in any way better than anyone else. It's just that they've done the fucking work. And so that to me is the right way to use a title. So if someone comes and is like, okay, well, I'm just a bard, I don't refer to myself as a filla. The next step up for a bard, like if it goes priest to high priest, a bard, the next step up is a filla. And a filla is like the top tier, best of the best bard. I'm not that. I'm not going to claim to be that, because I'm aware of where my gaps are in my own training. So, in all of the practices, though, even if someone were a fella, and I know one person in Ireland who is fella, and I definitely, definitely see them as a fella, Geraldine Merkinsburn, by the way. Um, I'm not going to step into a descriptor that does not describe my skill set. And I think that's really the difference that comes around to healthy practice with titles and understanding titles, and an unhealthy practice where someone is using it to either create mysticism or to gatekeep or to dominate or control in the worst of circumstances. Um, so for me, when someone presents a title, what they're doing is it's a job application. They're saying, oh, I'm skilled or trained in this area. And those areas invariably should be something that serves the community. The bards function as educators and storytellers and entertainers, but also witnesses and satirists to hold power accountable within their community. Everything a bard does is based around community for other people. Druids, for example, studying natural philosophies, understanding the elements of it for their own jollies or for their own kind of props. No, so that they're available to provide the insight and the guidance and support to their community when they need it. Priest, priestess, banfassa, seer, whatever terminology it is, all of those roles, because that's what they are, all of those roles or functions are something that serves others. And so if someone is presenting a title or this terminology as something that they have upon themselves, but they're not living in service or not providing, if the actions are not in keeping with the descriptor that they have adopted, then they're not that. Now, the other side of this narrative and this story is where people come and it's like, oh, well, I don't refer to myself as pagan, or I don't think I'm a witch, or an aspiring, or I'm kind of a devotee, or, a dedicant. I don't know how I'm not a priest or a priestess. How do I approach my relationship with the gods, guides, guardians if I don't have the words, if I'm not like, a bard of the Dagda or a priest of the Morrigan, how do I approach my relationship with those gods, guides, guardians? The answer to that is in whatever way works for you, because it's your relationship with that god, guide, guardian, and you don't need a descriptor to have that relationship. If you're making offerings to a particular god or even an ancestor or anything like that at all, it's building a relationship. It's building an awareness within yourself of them and their influences in the world, in this world or the other in the Irish context. You don't need any special approvals for that. You don't need any special, bops on the head, little white collar or funny hat to do that. It is your spiritual belief, your spiritual practice that you're developing and your relationship that you're developing with that. The only place titles or roles come into it is if you're going beyond self. If you're stepping into educating other people or guiding or helping other people with their kind of pathways, that's when some words become useful to have. And I have always referred to myself as a bard. Well, at one time, someone turned around to me and was like, "Oh, well, you're the Dagda priest." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! Pump the brakes," because I'm just a bard. I'm a storyteller. But then they actually had an honest conversation with me, and I sat down and I put my own ego aside and listened. And they're like, the role that you're fulfilling is pastoral care to the community. That is a function of priesthood. And so I had to just sit, even though that made me very uncomfortable. In fact, my partner Laura wrote a book, Practical Guide to Pagan Priesthood, which is exploring all about the pastoral and the sacerdotal roles of priesthood in paganism, not just Irish paganism, and what people should expect from individuals stepping into roles of priesthood. And interestingly, Laura reached out to a survey to many different people all around the world, many different practices, many different faiths and spiritualities to get their descriptors, to get their insight. It was a really full survey, very, very fascinating, very interesting. And I was asked to fill in the survey again because I'd been functioning in a role of community care, community service, pastoral service. I'm like, well, I don't have any deeper mysteries of the Dagda to be educating people on. And she's like, yeah, but you're doing the work on the other side of that narrative, and that makes you priest. And I'm like, well, I'm uncomfortable by this. And of all of the responses that Laura got for all of the surveys sent out, there were three people who did not use or were uncomfortable with the use of priest. And all three of those people were Irish people. Now, it might be because contextually speaking of the abuses the Catholic Church has labored on the people of Ireland, that the word priest in Ireland has many different connotations here. But interestingly, that yeah, all three, and it wasn't just me, it was the other Irish people were like, yeah, no, I kind of do all these things and I kind of offer and I guide people and I educate people. And it's like, so you see you're doing the priest work. It's like, no, 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 I wouldn't call myself a priest. But I eventually had to get comfortable with the fact that I wouldn't call myself a priest. But if using that word allows other people to have an understanding of how I help and support them, or and allow me to have a better understanding of the care and help and guidance I'm providing, then that's all it is. It's nothing fanciful. It's nothing, I don't have to wear special gowns or anything like that at all. It is a function, it is a role that I'm fulfilling for my community. So for me, the purpose of all of these, the purpose of a title isn't really as some accreditation or an award. Now, if you have studied in the same way, if you've got your master's, you've done a bachelor's, you have a PhD, those titles are those are descriptors to let other people know that you have expertise and you have done training. So someone is saying, for example, my partner Laura, high priest training, um, yeah, that to me is an indication of has done the fucking work. Now, does Laura trot that out every time Laura is introduced to people? Oh, so, but when Laura needs to step into that role, Laura has the skills to do so. Um, they were away recently at a camp, and someone asked them, could they do, I think it's called the Charge of the Goddess, which is a, a ritual performance in invoking or evoking, I'm not quite sure, goddess into a space. And Laura's like, oh, I haven't done that in years. I don't know if I have it. But then within a few minutes, Laura was able to do it because Laura had done the training. So uh, when someone uses those terms, in my personal opinion, it should be viewed as a descriptor. It should be viewed as, okay, well, these are the abilities or the skills or the training I have completed, all of which that serves the community. Now, if the actions, if the follow-up behaviors of that individual do not match, then they're not doing what they're claiming to be doing, you know? But the other side of that is, again, as I was trying to probably work my way around, is if someone is doing the service or doing the work, then that's the word that should be applied to them. So, you know, I'm uncomfortable about it, but I do accept the fact that on occasion I am a Dagda priest. I'm not just a Dagda bard when I step into the roles to serve the community in that way. So again, uncomfortable. This is I'm probably weird. I have the opposite effect to this. As a Leo person, everyone thinks, oh, it's all ego. Like I'm not running around being like, oh, well, I'm a Dagda priest and all the rest of it. I have the opposite where my ego is like, oh no, I couldn't be referring to myself as that. Um, but regardless of what way it is, if you are engaging in your own practice, your own personal spiritual growth, use whatever word that fits. Use whatever language that describes your relationship to God's guides, guardians, self, ancestors, whatever it is. Use whatever descriptors help you progress your own spiritual connection. And like that's what they should be. Words that help you describe your interactions with yourself as you grow. If you're stepping into relationships and service and work with community or on behalf of community, and the word fits for the work you're doing, then yeah, don't do a John and be afraid of a word because a word is a descriptor. Priest is a descriptor of service or work that someone should be doing for a community. So embrace those things, allow those to become part of your own process, but also don't feel that you have to earn it or you have to be tapped on the head by someone to be specially inaugurated or initiated. Now, okay, slight side, there are some practices, some belief structures that include initiatory practices. Okay, follow those guidelines. I'm not here to talk about those because I'm talking about Irish paganism in general. I'm not talking about hierarchical or like structured practices like that. I'm not an expert in Wicca. I'm not going to go near that because it's not my area. But if there is structured formats and within a practice or within an education, then honor that because that's the relationship you're choosing to be into and choosing to grow within. You know, do the work, do the training, and if at the end of it you have earned your high priestess status by doing all of the work, absolutely, you deserve to be known for what you do and what you provide. But if you did all the work just so you can call yourself a high priestess once a month but not turn up when people have spiritual needs or spiritual guidance, then I, okay, I'm stepping over into my personal opinions here, and I'm trying not to be negative about this entire video. But so many people come to us and like they have difficulty because they're expecting to have some title placed upon them by a relationship with a God, guide, and guardian. For some people it happens, some people it doesn't. And again, me being a Dagda bard, I just pulled the word bard. I was not ordained by the Dagda as his bard. It was the right word at the right time for me to be able to convey to people what work I was doing, educating, telling stories, connecting people in. And then over time, it has become more of that as my relationship with Dagda built. But I'm not saying that I'm the only Dagda bard in the world and will only ever be the one Dagda bard in the world. I look forward to meeting more Dagda people in the world because there's not enough of us, in my opinion, because Dagda people are the caregivers. Dagda people are the ones who stand up and fight when they need to fight, but also make sure everyone is safe afterwards, make sure everyone gets home, and make sure everyone has a nice, hearty meal and a good night's sleep. Them's Dagda people. And so that's what's needed. And yeah, absolutely, we need Morrigan people to, activism, drive the spear, charge the line. Dagda does that too, but he's also the person carrying the med kit to make sure that whoever needs support is going to get it. He's the one who literally stands over Nuada when he has his arm cut off and makes sure no one else gets fucking near him. The Dagda puts himself between harm uh, and those people who are most vulnerable. So we need more Dagda people in the world, in my opinion. And I look forward to meeting more Dagda people in the world. And there may be other people who function as Dagda bards, and that's okay. That's totally fine. I'm not precious of this descriptor, and no one really should be, you know? There is no one true individual that functions as any particular special. And if your spirituality exists as a performative title, then you're not engaging in spirit servicing your community. You're not engaging in actual practices. You're just performing for an audience or performing to try and gain an audience, or attention. So that's a different thing as well. Oddly enough, most time the people who are doing the role in spiritual service and spiritual support are the ones who are less likely to put themselves in front of everyone going, "Oh, look at me, I'm the blah blah blah." So maybe look around in your own like pagan community and be like, okay, well, some people claim they're priests and maybe they're doing the work and that's perfectly fine. But who else is doing something serving the community that is described in that way? And if it's you, then own the word because it allows you to have a comfortable descriptor so other people can understand the efforts that you're putting in on behalf of your community and other people. And don't let anyone tell you that you're not good enough or you don't have enough legacy or, oh, your bloodline doesn't. Fuck off. Fuck all of that nonsense right into the sea. Your relationship with your spiritual practice is yours. If a word helps you manage that better, great, okay. If a descriptor indicates your service to the community, great. But if you're going to take on board a descriptor or a title, as this might be, then you're taking on responsibility. You're taking on the willingness to do the work that goes along with the description of what that is. And so, me taking on the bard, for example, if someone comes and asks me a question about stuff, I'm not going to not answer that. I can't not answer that because that would be going against my tradition and my practice as a bard. If someone comes and asks me like to perform a ritual for them or some kind of naming ceremony, or that's in keeping with my role of priesthood and service to my community. So if I was to tell them, oh no, I don't do that, then I'm admitting I'm not a priest. And that can be okay too. Not everyone has to have all of the titles and collect all of the labels. But I feel like I'm rambling all the way around again. So yeah, do titles matter in Irish paganism? Neat answer, not hard to say. In my personal opinion, no, I don't think they do. They are just simply useful terms or descriptors for services that an individual may provide to their community. Hopefully this has been interesting. If you have had odd experiences with people claiming titles and not living up to it, or if you have someone who you're like, shout out for this person, they are 100% a guiding light in my community, then let me know. Throw them in the comments, and it's worth sharing those love and tagging those other people. And it's just by the way, this is the thing that you do. You're really great at it, and I really appreciate you. Not even here, just if you have thought about someone, let them know how much they mean to you. Because the world isn't the greatest at the moment, and the more we can come together as a community, the better we all are long term. If you would like to know more about all of this, watch more videos, listen to more stuff, go to irishpagan.school/free, grab over a year's worth of free resources there. And when you're ready to dive deeper, classes on irishpaganschool.com is where you'll find that. Or also Laura's book on pagan priesthood, Practical Guide to Pagan Priesthood. I might pull a link to that one and see if I can pop it down below as well, just in case anyone wants to really deep dive into how does one go about priesthood or what should someone expect of pagan priesthood. Until next time, look after yourself. Take care. August Long. Goodbye.